Ray Tillman came through his side door that cold December evening, expecting the usual. Pot roast in the oven, Linda humming somewhere in the house. The warm lights that made 43 years feel like home. He hung his coat on the same peg he'd used since 1982 and headed to the kitchen sink to wash his hands. That's when he saw them. 2 crystal wine glasses. The good ones, the wedding gift stemware Linda insisted they save for special occasions. On both glasses sitting in the stainless steel sink, one marked with her coral lipstick, both carrying the ghost scent of expensive cologne. Not his Old Spice, something sharper, newer. Ray's hands started shaking before his mind caught up. "Why are you home early?" Linda's voice came from behind him, irritated, not curious. He turned. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face flushed with something that looked a lot more like anger than guilt. "You told me you ate alone tonight," Ray said quietly, still holding one of the glasses. The crystal caught the kitchen light. "I did eat alone." Linda's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing, Ray? You calling me a liar?" There's 2 glasses here. And you said, Carol stopped by yesterday." Linda walked past him to the refrigerator, movements sharp. "We had wine. For God's sake, what's wrong with you lately?" Ray set the glass down carefully. Carol lived in Atlanta, 400 miles away. Hadn't visited since Thanksgiving last year. Carol was here? Linda spun around, and there it was. That look he'd been seeing more and more. Exasperation mixed with something harder. "Yes, Ray, my daughter can visit without filing paperwork. Or do you need to interrogate me every time I have a glass of wine in my own house?" The words landed like slaps. His daughter too, technically, but Linda had a way of claiming Carolyn when it served her point. "I'm not interrogating anybody, I'm just asking. You're being suspicious, paranoid." She pulled leftover meatloaf from the fridge, wouldn't meet his eyes. "Maybe you should talk to Doc Henderson if you're starting to imagine things." There it was, the twist. Somehow she'd made him the problem, the one who needed help, who was imagining things. Ray felt his face flush. 43 years of marriage, and she could still make him feel like he was the one being unreasonable for asking a simple question. "I'm sorry," he heard himself say. The words came automatic, conditioned. "I didn't mean anything by it." Linda's shoulders relaxed. "It's fine, just you've been tense lately." She touched his arm briefly. "I worry about you." She left him standing there, returned to the living room where he could hear the TV click on. Some home renovation show. Linda hummed along with the theme song like nothing had happened. Ray looked back at the wine glasses, the coral lipstick on one rim. The cologne smell still hanging in the air, not faint now that he was paying attention, expensive. The kind that came in small bottles from department stores across town, not the local pharmacy. His hands were still shaking. Ray's workshop sat 50 feet behind the house, a wooden outbuilding he'd wired himself back in '89. He told Linda he needed to organize his tools, which wasn't entirely a lie. He just couldn't be in that kitchen anymore. Couldn't stand next to those glasses and pretend he believed her. The workshop smelled like old wood and electrical grease, familiar and honest. His father's workbench stood against the far wall, scarred pine that had seen 3 generations of Tillman hands. Ray sat on the stool and stared at a circuit diagram he'd been meaning to study, but the numbers wouldn't focus. Carol stopped by yesterday. The lie sat in his chest like a stone. Not even a good lie. Lazy. Like she didn't think he'd check, or maybe like she didn't care if he did. Ray pulled open the workbench drawer and found a small spiral notebook, the kind he used for job estimates. He clicked his pen twice, an old habit, and wrote at the top of the first page, December 18th. Below that, 2 wine glasses, crystal, coral lipstick, cologne, expensive, not mine. He stared at the words, felt foolish writing them down, like some jealous husband in a bad TV movie. But Linda's face, when she turned around, that flash of anger instead of confusion, that had been real. How many times had she made him doubt himself? How many times had she rolled her eyes when he asked a question, sighed like he was being difficult, suggested he was getting forgetful or imagining things? Ray stood at the workshop window. Through the wavy glass, he could see Linda's silhouette in the living room window, blue television light flickering across her face. 43 years. He'd built this house with his own hands, wired every outlet, knew every board that creaked. He'd kept every promise he'd made at that courthouse in 1982. But standing here now, notebook in hand, Ray realized something cold and certain. He'd been so busy being trustworthy that he'd never thought to wonder if trust was being returned. He closed the notebook and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Tomorrow was Thursday. He had his food bank shift at First Baptist, 2 to 5, same as every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 years. Linda knew his schedule by heart. Maybe it was time he started paying closer attention to hers. Across the gravel driveway and property line, in the yellow Victorian with the bay window, Nora Pruitt watched Ray's workshop light stay on past midnight. She'd seen him cross the yard earlier, Shoulders hunched in that way that made a man look older than his years. She recognized that walk. Her own husband had moved like that the last year before he died, carrying weight that didn't show on scales. Nora opened her own notebook, the one she kept on the windowsill beside her binoculars. The ones her daughter said made her look like a nosy old lady. But what did Sally know? Sally lived in Phoenix and called twice a year. The notebook had dates going back 3 months. She flipped to today's entry, already written in her careful bank teller script. Deck 18, 7:15 p.m. Ray home early, unusual. Workshop light on 7:40 p.m. She turned back several pages. Deck 15, silver Lexus, arrives 2:17 p.m. Ray at food bank, departs 4:51 p.m. Deck 11, silver Lexus, arrives 2:20 p.m. Departs 4:47 p.m. Deck 8, silver Lexus, arrives 2:14 p.m. Departs 4:55 p.m. The pattern went back further, every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. Nora set her pen down and looked across at Ray's workshop. The light finally clicked off. She saw him emerge, walk slowly back to his house, a man heading somewhere he didn't want to go. "You deserve to know," she whispered to the dark window. "But how did you tell a neighbor? A good man who'd fixed your circuit breaker for free and never asked for anything, that you'd been watching his driveway for 3 months? That you'd seen what he was just now starting to suspect? Her own adult children had tried to declare her incompetent 2 years back, tried to say she couldn't manage her own affairs, all because they wanted her dead husband's pension money. She'd beaten them in court with documentation, precise, dated, irrefutable. Sometimes being a witness meant sitting in the dark and taking notes, waiting for the moment when the truth needed proof. Nora closed her notebook and turned off her lamp. That moment was coming. She could feel it. 3 weeks into January, Ray's notebook had filled 6 pages. He kept it in his jacket pocket now, the spiral wire catching on the fabric lining every time he reached for his keys. Every night after Linda went to bed, he'd sit in the workshop and record what he'd noticed. Not dramatic things, small ones. The kind of details a trusting man would ignore. Jan 4, Linda showered at 1:30 p.m. before my shift. Hair done, perfume. Jan 7, checked odometer after food bank. Linda's car 23 extra miles. Says she went to Walmart, 8 miles round trip. Jan 11, restaurant receipt and kitchen trash. Place I've never heard of. Across town, 2 entrees. He felt pathetic writing it down. Felt like those suspicious husbands in divorce lawyer commercials, the kind Linda would have laughed at 6 months ago. But the alternative, trusting his memory against her denials, that ship had sailed the night of the wine glasses. The pattern emerged clear as circuit diagrams. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Linda transformed. Hair perfect, makeup careful, clothes she'd usually save for church, all timed for the hours between 2 and 5, when Ray volunteered at First Baptist's food bank across town. He'd been doing that shift for 6 years. Linda knew it by heart. Tuesday morning, 3rd week of January, Ray poured coffee in the kitchen while Linda made oatmeal. The radio played some song about heartbreak. Fitting? "You got your church thing today?" Linda asked, not looking up from the stove. Food bank, 2 to 5, same as always. Right. She stirred the pot, wooden spoon scraping the bottom. "I'll probably run some errands. Need to get out of the house." Ray sipped his coffee. Bitter, but he'd made it too strong on purpose. Needed the bite. Where are you thinking?" Linda's shoulders stiffened, just slightly. Most people wouldn't catch it. Ray had wired enough houses to notice when circuits were under load. "Just around, maybe the mall. I don't know yet." She ladled oatmeal into bowls, set one in front of him. "Why?" "No reason. Just asking." She studied him for a moment, then smiled, the same smile she'd given him 10,000 mornings. "You worry too much, Ray. It's just errands." He watched her walk away, coffee mug in hand, to eat her breakfast in front of the morning news. The oatmeal sat cooling in front of him. He couldn't remember the last time they'd eaten breakfast together at the table. Ray dumped the oatmeal down the disposal and headed to his truck. At 2:15 p.m., Ray stood in First Baptist's Fellowship Hall basement sorting canned goods with 3 other volunteers. Green beans to the left, corn to the right, mixed vegetables in the middle. Mindless work that usually settled him. Not today. "You all right there, Ray?" Eddie Krantz appeared beside him, holding a box of mac and cheese. Eddie ran the hardware store downtown, had known Ray since the 80s. "You've been staring at that can of peas for 5 minutes." Ray blinked, set the can down. "Just thinking." "Dangerous occupation." Eddie grinned, but his eyes were serious. The kind of serious that came from 5 decades of reading people across a hardware store counter. "Everything okay at home?" The question hung between them. Ray could deflect, could say fine, and move on. Eddie would let him. That's what men their age did. Respected boundaries, didn't pry into marriage business. But something in Ray wanted to say it out loud. Test the words, see if they sounded as crazy spoken as they did in his head. How do you know? Ray asked quietly. When something's wrong, I mean. When you're not just being paranoid. Eddie set his box down. Across the room, two church ladies debated canned peaches versus canned pears. Pastor Bill's voice echoed from upstairs, talking to someone about the Sunday bulletin. You trust your gut, Ray. You've been doing electrical work 40 years. You know when a wire's hot before you touch it, don't you? That's different. That's voltage. That's measurable. Is it? Eddie pulled out a pocket knife, started breaking down the cardboard box. My Mary, God rest her, she used to say trust was like voltage. You could feel it running through a marriage, keeping things lit up. And when it wasn't there anymore, you could feel that too, even before you had proof. Ray swallowed hard. Mary had been gone 3 years, cancer. Eddie still wore his wedding ring. What if you're wrong, though? What if you're just imagining problems that aren't there? Eddie looked at him dead on. Ray, in all the years I've known you, I've never seen you imagine a problem. You're the most practical man I know. Too practical sometimes. So if your gut's telling you something's wrong, I'd listen to it. Ray nodded, couldn't speak past the tightness in his throat. And Ray? Eddie gripped his shoulder. Whatever you find, if you find anything, you make sure you got proof. Solid proof. Not just feelings, because feelings they can talk you out of. Proof? That stands on its own. 4:47 p.m. Ray's truck idled at a red light 6 blocks from home. His shift had ended at 5 like always, but he'd left early. Told Pastor Bill he wasn't feeling well, which was close enough to the truth. He took the long way home, drove past the mall Linda said she might visit, didn't see her car, drove past Walmart, not there either. Ray turned onto his street at 4:52 p.m. and saw what he'd been dreading. Linda's car in the driveway. Fresh tire tracks in the January slush showed she'd just arrived, maybe 5 minutes ago, judging by how the snow hadn't refilled them yet. He parked his truck at the curb instead of pulling in, sat there with the engine running, heat blowing cold air until the block warmed up. Through his windshield, he could see his house. Lights on in the kitchen, Linda moving past the window. Everything looked normal, like every other Tuesday for 43 years. Except it was 4:52 p.m., and he usually didn't get home until 5:20. Except Linda's car had just arrived. Snow still fresh on the hood, despite the hours she'd supposedly been running errands. Except his gut, that voltage Eddie talked about, was screaming that the circuit was dead, even though the lights still worked. Ray pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, sat in the cold cab watching his breath fog the windows. His hands weren't shaking anymore. That scared him more than the shaking had. Saturday morning, Ray offered to do laundry. Linda looked surprised. It was usually her job. But she was watching her cooking show and waved him off, without comment. In the laundry room that still smelled like fabric softener and old house, Ray started sorting clothes from the hamper. Whites, darks, delicates. A routine he'd watched Linda do 1,000 times. Linda's winter coat hung on the hook by the washing machine. Navy blue wool, the one she wore for errands. Ray had bought it for her 3 Christmases ago. He shouldn't look. He knew he shouldn't. It was a violation, the kind of thing you couldn't come back from. Once you checked your wife's pockets, you'd crossed a line that changed what you were to each other. Ray's hand went into the right pocket anyway. Kleenex. Grocery store receipt from last Thursday. Milk, bread, butter, all legitimate. He should stop. Should put the coat back. And his fingers touched paper in the left pocket. Thicker stock. He pulled it out. Receipt from Vintage Cellars. A wine shop he'd never heard of. Had to be across town. There wasn't any wine shop in their part of the county. Date. Tuesday. 3 weeks ago. The day he'd found the crystal glasses. 1 bottle. Chateau something French. $87. Ray stood there holding the receipt like it might bite him. $87 for wine. When he drank Budweiser because anything else seemed wasteful. When Linda complained about his hardware store coffee being extravagant at $3. The date matched Linda's story about Carol visiting. The wine matched the crystal glasses. But Carol lived in Atlanta, and Linda had been buying wine for $87 at a shop across town on a Tuesday afternoon when Ray was at the food bank. He pulled out his phone with hands that had learned steadiness again, took a photo of the receipt, careful to get the date, the amount, the store name, all visible. Then he folded it exactly as he'd found it and put it back in the coat pocket. Left side, same depth. The washing machine gurgled as it filled. Ray watched the water rise through the glass door, whites tumbling in the suds, everything getting clean whether it wanted to be or not. He'd wanted to be wrong. God, he'd wanted these 3 weeks of suspicion to end with him feeling foolish. Linda laughing at his paranoia, everything back to normal. But normal was gone. Had been gone. Maybe, for longer than he wanted to admit. He'd just been too busy trusting to notice the voltage had died. Ray pulled out his notebook and wrote, Jan 18, receipt, Vintage Cellars, $87 wine, Tuesday deck 18, same day as wine glasses. Below that, he added, Linda told me she was running errands at Walmart He didn't write what he was thinking. Who was worth $87 wine? He already knew he wasn't. The first week of February brought a thaw in the weather and in Linda. Ray noticed it Tuesday morning when she touched his shoulder while he poured coffee. Not a long touch, just her hand resting there for 3 seconds while she reached past him for the sugar bowl. But it was the first voluntary contact in weeks. "Sleep okay?" she asked. And her voice had that soft quality it used to have back when they were young, when touching each other was still automatic. "Pretty good," Ray lied. He'd been up until 2, writing in his notebook. "I was thinking..." Linda stirred her coffee, actually looked at him. "Maybe we should get away for a bit. Just you and me. Valentine's weekend coming up, we could drive down to Gatlinburg, stay in one of those cabin places with the mountain views." Ray felt something crack open in his chest. Hope, maybe, or the memory of hope. "Yeah? Yeah." She smiled, and it reached her eyes for the first time in months. "We haven't done anything like that in forever. And I think it would be good for us, Ray. Good to get out of this house, away from routine. Remember what we liked about each other." And he wanted to believe her so badly it hurt. Wanted this to be real, wanted the wine glasses and the receipts and the notebook to be paranoia after all. Wanted his wife back. "I'd like that," he said, and meant it down to his bones. Linda kissed his cheek. Quick, casual, but genuine. "I'll look up places online. You just show up with your wallet." She laughed, the sound light and familiar. Ray put his notebook away that night. Didn't write a word. Told himself he'd been wrong, jumping at shadows, letting Eddie's talk about dead voltage mess with his head. By week 2, Linda was laughing at his old jokes again. The stupid ones about church potlucks and Pastor Bill's never-ending sermons. She suggested they watch a movie together Friday night, made popcorn the old way on the stove like she used to. They sat on the couch with a bowl between them, and when their hands touched, reaching for popcorn at the same time, Linda didn't pull away. Ray booked the cabin, upgraded to the one with the fireplace and hot tub. Cost $300 more. But what was money compared to getting his marriage back? He even stopped by the jewelry store downtown, bought the pearl earrings Linda had admired last fall. Small ones, tasteful, the kind she could wear to church. He practiced giving them to her in the bathroom mirror, felt foolish and young at the same time. The thaw lasted exactly 16 days. February 14th, 6 a.m. Ray stood in the master bathroom, toothbrush in hand, when he heard the shower turn on in the guest bathroom down the hall. Odd. Linda usually showered here, in their bathroom. But maybe she didn't want to wake him, wanted to let him sleep in on a Saturday. He rinsed his mouth and noticed Linda's phone on the bathroom counter, still plugged into the charger. Linda never left her phone unattended, not anymore. For months now, it had been glued to her hand, taking it to the kitchen, the living room, even keeping it in her pocket when she gardened. Ray couldn't remember the last time he'd seen it, just sitting somewhere, available. He should walk away, should finish brushing his teeth and go make coffee and pretend he hadn't noticed. But the shower was running. Linda wouldn't be out for 10 minutes minimum. She liked her showers long and hot. Ray picked up the phone. The screen lit with a text notification preview, the message just visible without unlocking. Marcus W. Ray booked us Gatlinburg V-Day. Can't cancel now. Need 3 more weeks. Trust me. Ray read it 3 times. His hands didn't shake. The toothpaste taste in his mouth turned metallic. Ray booked us Gatlinburg. Us. Not Ray booked Gatlinburg for him and Linda. Not Ray and Linda are going away. Us. Like the trip was for Marcus? Like Ray was some kind of obstacle to be managed, worked around, postponed. Need 3 more weeks. 3 more weeks until what? Until the trip was over? Until whatever they were planning could happen, without Ray being in the way. The shower kept running. Linda's voice hummed something, a song Ray didn't recognize. He set the phone down exactly where he'd found it, plugged in at the same angle, screen dark again. His reflection in the bathroom mirror looked older than it had 16 days ago. The reflection of a man who'd let himself believe in January thaws and pearl earrings and cabins with fireplaces. The reflection of what Linda and Marcus, who the hell was Marcus, called Ray like he was a problem with a deadline. Trust me, the text had said. Ray left the bathroom and went downstairs. Made coffee with hands that had found their steadiness. Pulled his notebook out of the kitchen junk drawer where he'd hidden it 2 weeks ago, believing he wouldn't need it anymore. February 14th, he wrote, text from Marcus W. Ray booked us Gatlinburg V-Day. Can't cancel now. Need 3 more weeks. Trust me. The coffee pot gurgled. Upstairs, the shower shut off. Ray closed the notebook and waited for his wife to come downstairs and pretend to love him for 3 more weeks. The fight happened 4 days later. Linda picked it over nothing. Ray leaving his coffee mug in the sink instead of the dishwasher. Small thing, stupid thing, but she escalated it fast, her voice rising with practiced precision. You never appreciate anything I do. 43 years of cooking and cleaning, And you can't even put a mug in the dishwasher? Linda, I'll put it... No, it's not about the mug, Ray. It's about respect. About being taken for granted every single day of my life. Ray stood there absorbing it, watching her manufacture outrage out of nothing. He could see the mechanics of it now, the way she'd engineered this, built it from a coffee mug into something large enough to justify what came next. I'm canceling Gatlinburg, Linda announced, arms crossed. I need space to think about us. About whether this marriage is even worth... She stopped, let the sentence hang. Ray felt nothing. Just watched her performance with clinical detachment. All right, he said. Linda blinked. She'd expected protest, probably, begging. The old Ray would have given it to her. All right, that's all you have to say? You want space? You should have space. Ray picked up his coffee mug, put it in the dishwasher. I'll call and cancel the cabin today. He walked past her to the workshop, leaving Linda standing in the kitchen looking oddly deflated, like an actress who'd delivered her big scene to an empty theater. Ray returned the pearl earrings that afternoon. The jeweler gave him store credit. He didn't tell Linda. There wasn't much point. That night, Ray moved his clothes to the guest bedroom. Linda didn't ask why. They'd stopped asking each other questions that required honest answers. 3 more weeks, the text had said. Ray pulled out his calendar, counted forward from Valentine's Day. March 7th. Whatever Marcus and Linda were planning, whatever deadline they were working toward, it would come to a head around March 7th. Ray had time. And time, he'd learned from 40 years of electrical work, was all you needed to wire things properly. Carolyn called on a Wednesday, 3rd week of February. Hey, Dad, I'm coming up this weekend. Need to go through some stuff with you. Ray stood in his workshop, phone to his ear, caught off guard. Carolyn hadn't visited unannounced in 3 years. Not since the argument about her divorce, Linda saying Carolyn had given up too easy, Carolyn saying Mom wouldn't understand loyalty if it bit her. Everything okay? Ray asked. Yeah, just, it's tax season. Thought I'd help you organize your documents like I usually do. That okay? It was okay. More than okay. Ray realized he'd been alone in this, whatever this was, for too long. Saturday morning, Carolyn's rental car pulled into the driveway at 9 a.m. She looked tired, Ray thought, thinner than Christmas. But she hugged him tight and long, the way she used to when she was little. You look good, Dad. Liar. But he smiled. Linda was cordial at breakfast, cool but polite. The temperature in the kitchen felt like late November, Carolyn noticed. Ray saw her clock it in the first 5 minutes. The way she'd always been able to read a room's voltage. After breakfast, Carolyn spread paperwork across the dining room table. W-2s, 1099s, mortgage statements, the usual February ritual. Ray sat across from her with coffee going cold in his mug. Dad, what's this? Carolyn held up a document, her CPA face on, the one that meant numbers weren't adding up. Ray leaned forward. Home equity refinance application, his name at the top, Linda's below, the house address, amount, $150,000. I didn't sign that, Ray said. Carolyn's jaw tightened. Mom said you were getting forgetful, that you'd signed it last month and didn't remember. Something cold settled in Ray's stomach. Linda had been prepositioning, building the narrative before Carolyn found the paperwork, making Ray the confused old man who couldn't remember what he'd signed. I didn't sign anything. Ray's voice came out harder than he meant. I'm not forgetful, Carolyn. I'm a lot of things right now, but forgetful isn't one of them. Carolyn studied him for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. Let me make a call. 40 minutes later, Carolyn set her phone down, with a look Ray recognized from when she was 16 and had caught her boyfriend cheating. Analytical rage, the kind that came with spreadsheets. That's not your signature, Dad. I had a forensic guy. Look at the photo I sent. The pressure points are wrong. The letter formation's off. Someone forged it. Ray felt vindication and violation crash together in his chest. There's more. As Carolyn pulled up something on her laptop. The financial consultant listed on the application? Marcus Waverly, so I ran his credit. She turned the screen toward Ray. Marcus Waverly, age 52, current debt, $87,403 maxed credit cards. Child support arrears, $12,000, 2 months behind on car payments. The silver Lexus, Ray would bet money on it. The loan officer processing this? Carolyn pointed to a name. David Chen. I called the bank, asked around. He and Marcus Waverly played golf together every Thursday. Ray's hands gripped the table edge. The wood grain pressed into his palms. When's the closing? He asked quietly. March 15th. Carolyn met his eyes. 2.5 weeks, Dad. If this goes through, you're liable for fraud. They can come after everything. The house, your retirement, all of it. And the house? Her voice cracked slightly. Grandpa died in this house. You built it with your own hands. I know. Ray stood, walked to the window. Outside, February mud was starting to show through the snow. Spring coming, whether you were ready or not. Dad, Carolyn came to stand beside him. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Ray waited. Is Mom having an affair? There it was, the question out loud in his daughter's voice, making it real in a way his notebook never could. Yeah, Ray said. I think she is. Carolyn closed her eyes. With Marcus Waverly? That'd be my guess. And you think they're trying to steal the house, to cover his debts? I don't think it, honey. You just proved it. Carolyn was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was tight with something Ray hadn't heard in years. His daughter, on his side. I'm sorry, Dad. Mom's been telling me for months that you were confused, that you were making accusations. I thought... She stopped. I thought you were being paranoid. I'm so sorry. Ray put his arm around her shoulders. You didn't know. She's good at this. Better than I wanted to believe. What do we do? Ray thought about Eddie's words at the food bank. You make sure you got proof, solid proof, because feelings they can talk you out of. Proof, that stands on its own. We stop the refinance legally. That means a fraud investigation. It'll be public, Dad. The bank, probably the police. Everyone will know. Ray looked at his reflection in the window, at his daughter beside him, at the house behind them that 3 generations of Tillman men had lived in. Good, he said. I want it public. I'm done letting Linda make me doubt reality. If we're doing this, we do it with witnesses. Carolyn nodded slowly. Okay, then I need to make some calls. And Dad, you should probably talk to a divorce lawyer. The words sat in the room like a stranger. After 43 years, divorce sounded like a foreign language. But so did fraud. So did Marcus Waverly. So did a lot of things that were true anyway. Yeah, Ray said. I probably should. That night, Linda asked Carolyn about her visit over leftover chicken. Just helping Dad with taxes, Carolyn said, voice neutral. Found some interesting paperwork. Linda's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Just for a second. But Ray saw it, the flicker of something behind her eyes. Concern, calculation. What kind of paperwork? Oh, you know, tax stuff. Nothing exciting. Carolyn smiled, and Ray recognized it. The smile his daughter used when she'd already won, but hadn't told you yet. Linda excused herself early. Said she had a headache. After she left, Carolyn leaned across the table. We've got her, Dad. The forensic accountant, the fraud evidence, Marcus's financial records. We've got everything, Ray nodded. Felt no triumph, just exhausted certainty. Now what? He asked. Now? Carolyn's smile turned sharper. Now we decide how we want to tell the truth. The ice storm hit on a Thursday, mid-February. Forecasters had been warning about it for 3 days. The kind of winter storm that shut down the whole county, knocked out power, made roads impassable. Ray stood at the kitchen window Thursday morning, watching sleet tick against the glass like someone throwing gravel. The thermometer outside read 19 degrees. Freezing rain had started around midnight and wasn't supposed to stop until Saturday. 3 days, minimum. Him and Linda, trapped in this house together. Church called, Linda said from behind him, voice flat. Food banks canceled through the weekend. Roads are too bad. Figured as much. They hadn't shared more than logistics in weeks. Furnace is making noise. Milk's gone bad. I'll be in the workshop. Conversations you could have with a roommate you didn't particularly like. Ray watched ice accumulate on the power lines. Watched tree branches bow under the weight. The whole world turning white and frozen. Nature matching what had happened inside this house. I'll be upstairs, Linda said. Ray didn't turn around. Heard her footsteps on the stairs, the master bedroom door close. He'd been sleeping in the guest room since Valentine's. They orbited each other now like hostile planets. Necessary proximity, careful distance. The coffee pot gurgled behind him, the only sound besides ice and wind. 3 days. By Friday night, the silence had texture, weight. It sat in the rooms like a third person. Something you had to navigate around. Ray spent most of the day in the guest bedroom, reading an old Tom Clancy novel he'd already read twice. Linda stayed in the master bedroom. They used the kitchen in shifts. Ray could hear her movements upstairs. The creak of floorboards that told him when she was heading down. He'd retreat to give her space. Around 6 p.m., Ray made a sandwich. Turkey and cheese. No mayo because they were out. He ate standing at the counter, looking out at a world turned to ice sculpture. His truck sat in the driveway under 3 inches of frozen rain. The workshop's roof sagged slightly. He'd need to check that when the storm broke. Linda's footsteps on the stairs. Ray wrapped up the rest of his sandwich, grabbed his water bottle. You don't have to leave, Linda said from the doorway. Ray stopped, turned. She stood there in her bathrobe, hair pulled back, looking older than he remembered. Or maybe he just hadn't looked at her, really looked, in months. It's easier, Ray said. Easier for who? Both of us, I think. Linda's jaw tightened. This is ridiculous. We're adults, Ray. We can share a kitchen. Can we? The question came out harder than he meant. They stared at each other across 10 feet of linoleum that felt like 10 miles. All the things unsaid stacking up between them like cordwood, the wine glasses, the receipt, the text message. Marcus Waverly, the forged signature, 43 years of marriage turning into whatever this was. Never mind, Linda said finally. Do whatever you want. You always do. She left. Ray stood there holding half a sandwich, listening to her footsteps retreat upstairs. The house creaked under ice weight. Outside, a branch snapped somewhere and crashed to frozen ground. Saturday night, 11 p.m. Ray lay in the guest bedroom reading by lamplight, grateful the power had held. The furnace clicked on and off. Sleet had finally stopped, but the damage was done. Ice coated everything, the whole county locked down until thaw. Through the thin walls, he heard Linda's voice, talking on the phone in the master bedroom. Her tone was different, lighter, almost girlish. The voice she used to use with him, years ago. Ray set his book down, stood, moved to the door. He shouldn't listen, knew he shouldn't. But his feet carried him into the dark hallway anyway, where Linda's voice came clearer through her bedroom door. He suspects nothing, trust me. The old fool thinks I still love him. Ray's hand found the wall, steadied himself. Marcus's voice, tinny through speakerphone. What if he finds the paperwork, the refinance? Linda laughed. Actually laughed. Ray, he couldn't find his ass with both hands in a map. I've been handling all our finances for years. He doesn't look at anything. But if he does, he won't. And even if he did, who'd believe him? I've been telling Carolyn for months he's getting forgetful, confused. Nobody takes confused old men seriously, Marcus. 3 more weeks, Marcus said. Just 3 more weeks and we're clear. I know, baby, I know. Just keep your head down and stay away until then. After the 15th, we can... Ray's phone rang in his pocket. He fumbled for it, panicked, too loud, pressed decline without looking at the caller ID. But the damage was done. Linda's voice stopped mid-sentence. He heard movement in her room. Ray moved fast, quiet as he could, back to the guest room, closed the door with barely a click, dove into bed, and killed the lamp. His heart hammered in the dark. His phone screen glowed. Missed call. Pastor Bill. Through the wall, silence. Linda had stopped talking. Was she listening? Had she heard him in the hallway? Ray lay there, in the dark, hand over his mouth to quiet his breathing, and felt something fundamental break inside his chest. The old fool thinks I still love him. She'd said it so casually, like it was funny. Like 43 years of his life was a joke she'd been telling to a man Ray had never met. He couldn't find his ass with both hands in a map. The contempt in her voice, that wasn't new hurt, new anger. That was old, settled. The kind of contempt that took years to grow, that lived in someone so long it became how they saw you. How long? Ray stared at the dark ceiling. How long had Linda looked at him like that? How long had she been counting down until she could be done with the old fool who couldn't find his ass? Outside, another branch cracked under ice weight. The sound echoed like a rifle shot. Ray pulled out his phone, typed a message to Carolyn. We need to talk. Soon as road's clear. Then he added, bring everything. Sunday morning, the ice began to melt. Ray heard it dripping from the eaves, steady as a clock ticking down. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Pastor Bill. Ray called back. Ray, good to hear from you. I tried calling last night, wanted to check on you and Linda during the storm. Everything all right there? Ray stood at the guest room window, watching ice fall from tree branches in sheets. We're fine, Pastor, just trapped inside like everyone else. Good, good. The Lord keeps us safe in storms. Pastor Bill paused. Listen, I wanted to, that is, if you ever need to talk, Ray, about anything. You know my door's always open. There was something in the pastor's voice, carefully concerned. The kind of care that knew something but didn't want to say it outright. What aren't you telling me, Bill? Another pause. Longer. Nothing, Ray. Just checking on my flock. Bill. Ray, Pastor Bill sighed. People talk. Small churches, small towns. And sometimes we hear things, see things, and we don't know if it's our place to... Who saw what? Ray's voice came out flat. I shouldn't have... Look, it's probably nothing. Misunderstandings. Pastor, I'm asking you directly. What did people see? The silence stretched. Ray could hear Pastor Bill breathing, wrestling with pastoral duty versus getting involved in marriage business. Joanne Meeks saw Linda at the grocery store, the upscale one across town. She was with a man. It looked like they were together, Ray, shopping together, laughing. Joanne said Linda was helping him pick out wine. Ray closed his eyes. When? He asked. Couple months back, maybe longer, and she's not the only one who's mentioned, Ray, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. No. Ray opened his eyes. You should have said something months ago. He hung up before Pastor Bill could respond. So the church knew. The whole damn church probably knew, had been watching Linda parade around with Marcus, and nobody had said a word to Ray. They'd all just watched the old fool walk around clueless while his wife... Ray's phone buzzed. Text from Carolyn. Road's clearing tomorrow. I'll be there by noon. Dad, are you okay? He typed back, no, but I will be. Monday morning, the ice broke. Ray watched from the workshop window as Linda emerged from the house in her good coat, the navy one he'd bought her for Christmas. She had to be somewhere, hair done, makeup on. Across the property line, he saw movement in Nora Pruitt's bay window. Her curtain pulled back, binoculars glinting in the morning sun. Linda got in her car, backed carefully out of the driveway, drove off toward town. Ray stood there for a long moment. Then he saw Nora's front door open. She stepped out onto her porch and waved at him. Not subtle, direct. He understood. She was ready to talk. Had been ready, probably for months. Ray grabbed his coat and crossed the yard. Time to hear what his own house had looked like from the outside, while he'd been living inside it blind. Nora's kitchen smelled like coffee and lemon furniture polish. Old linoleum, the yellow kind from the 70s that nobody made anymore. Lace curtains filtering March morning light into something soft and forgiving. Sit down, Ray. But Nora gestured to the breakfast nook. Coffee's fresh. Ray sat. His hands felt too large for the delicate table, too rough for the embroidered tablecloth. This was a widow's kitchen, kept perfect because there was no one left to make messes. Nora poured 2 mugs, actual ceramic mugs, not the chipped ones Ray used. She set one in front of him, then sat across the table with a notebook Ray recognized, the same kind he kept in his jacket pocket. How long have you known? Ray asked quietly. 3 months, give or take. Nora opened the notebook. I see your driveway from my bedroom window. Didn't mean to spy, Ray, but I'm up there a lot. Arthritis keeps me from sleeping good, and I started noticing patterns. She turned the notebook toward him. The pages were filled with her careful script. Bank teller handwriting, every letter precise. Dates, times, descriptions. Dozens of entries going back to November. Novi 19, silver Lexus arrives 2:14 p.m., departs 4:52 p.m. Ray's truck not in driveway. Nova 23, silver Lexus arrives 2:18 p.m., departs 4:47 p.m. Nova 26, silver Lexus arrives 2:11 p.m., departs 4:55 p.m. The pattern continued through December, January, February. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. Arrival times between 2:10 and 2:20 p.m. Departure times between 4:45 and 5 o'clock p.m. Always when Ray's truck was gone. I ran the plate, Nora said, pulling out a piece of paper. Friend of mine at the DMV, Marcus Waverly, age 52, lives over in the Riverside Apartments. Ray stared at the name typed on official DMV letterhead. Marcus Waverly. The man who'd texted his wife about Ray booking us Gatlinburg. The man who was helping Linda steal his house. I got pictures too. Nora pulled out a manila folder. Didn't feel right, but I figured you'd need proof if it came to that. She spread photographs across the table. The silver Lexus in Ray's driveway. A man getting out? Tall, well-dressed, younger than Ray by 15 years. Marcus entering Ray's front door. Linda opening it before he knocked, like she'd been watching for him. One photo showed them leaving together, Linda's hand on Marcus's arm, both of them smiling. Ray's coffee had gone cold. He couldn't have drunk it anyway. His throat had closed up. Why didn't you tell me? His voice came out rough. Nora's face softened. Would you have believed me, Ray, back in November, if I'd knocked on your door and said your wife was cheating? Would you have believed me without proof? Ray thought about the wine glasses, how Linda had made him doubt his own eyes, his own sanity, how easily she'd gaslit him into apologizing for asking questions. No, he admitted, I wouldn't have. And that's why I documented everything. Because feelings and suspicions, people can talk you out of those. But dates, times, photographs, license plates? Nora tapped the notebook. Those stand on their own. Ray looked at this woman, his neighbor for 14 years, someone he'd helped with circuit breakers and stuck windows, someone he'd waved at over hedges and discussed weather with, and realized she'd been protecting him in the only way she knew how. My kids tried to have me declared incompetent 2 years back, Nora said quietly. Wanted me in a home so they could get at their daddy's pension money. Said I was confused, forgetful, couldn't manage my own affairs. She smiled, but it was bitter. I beat them in court with documentation. Every bank statement, every bill paid on time, every receipt. Paper doesn't lie, Ray. And paper doesn't let people make you doubt yourself. I'm sorry, Ray said. I didn't know. Not many do. Point is, I learned something from that fight. I learned that good people who keep their promises, people who do right by others, we get targeted. Because the folks doing the targeting think loyalty means stupid. Think trust means easy mark? Her eyes were fierce now. But we're not stupid, Ray. We're just decent. And decent shouldn't have to apologize. Ray felt something loosen in his chest. Some knot of shame he'd been carrying since the wine glasses, the shame of being betrayed, of not seeing it coming, of needing his neighbor to document his own humiliation. Thank you, he managed. Don't thank me yet. Nora closed the notebook. What are you going to do with this? Ray thought about Carolyn's forensic evidence, about Pastor Bill's uncomfortable confession, about Eddie saying proof stands on its own. My daughter found fraud, he said. Linda and Marcus tried to refinance the house, forge my signature. They're trying to steal it, Nora. The house my father died in. The house I built. Nora's mouth tightened. When's the closing? March 15th, this Saturday. Then you don't have much time. No. And Ray pulled out his own notebook, set it beside Nora's. 2 records of the same betrayal, documented from different windows. I'm going to stop it, but not quietly. Not behind closed doors where Linda can lie her way out of it. What are you thinking? Ray met her eyes. I'm thinking I want witnesses, real ones. People who will stand in a room and tell the truth, whether it's comfortable or not. Nora studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded, decisive. What do you need? I need you to stand with me. Bring this notebook, these pictures. I'm calling a family meeting. Linda, Carolyn, maybe Pastor Bill. Anyone who knows part of this story. And I'm going to lay out the truth. All of it. Where nobody can pretend it isn't happening. When? Tomorrow night, Tuesday. Ray's jaw set. 7 o'clock, my house. Linda will be there? I'll make sure of it. Ray stood, picked up his mug. Nora, why'd you do this? All this watching, documenting. You could have just ignored it. Easier that way. Nora stood too, walked him to the door. At the threshold, she turned back to him. You deserve to know what your own home looked like from the outside, Ray. Somebody needed to be a witness. She paused. And maybe I needed to be the kind of neighbor I wish I'd had when my kids were circling. Someone who saw and didn't look away. Ray felt his eyes burn. He nodded, didn't trust his voice. 7 o'clock tomorrow, Nora repeated. I'll be there. Ray crossed back to his own yard, carrying Nora's evidence folder under his arm. The March sun felt warmer than it had any right to. Snow was melting in earnest now, water running in the gutters, everything turning from white to brown to the promise of green. Spring coming, whether you were ready or not. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to Linda's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. 43 years. It came down to this, a phone call, a meeting, witnesses assembled to prove what his heart had known since December. Ray hit call. Linda answered on the 3rd ring. Yeah? We need to talk, Ray said. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Here at the house. About what? About us. About the marriage. About everything. He kept his voice neutral. Carolyn will be here too. It's time we all sat down and figured things out. Linda was quiet for a moment. Is this about the refinance? Because I told you, Ray. We talked about that. We'll discuss everything tomorrow, 7 p.m. Don't be late. He hung up before she could argue. Then he called Carolyn. Get here by 6 tomorrow. Bring all the evidence, everything. Dad, what's happening? I'm done being the old fool, Ray said. Tomorrow night we tell the truth. When Carolyn arrived Monday afternoon at 4, her rental car loaded with file boxes and a determination Ray recognized from when she was 16 and decided to run for class president. I brought everything, she said, hauling boxes into the dining room. Forensic analysis, Marcus's financials, timeline of the fraud, copies of the forged application. Ray, this is airtight. A prosecutor would love this case. Ray helped her spread documents across the table. 43 years of marriage reduced to evidence exhibits laid out like an autopsy. How are you doing? Carolyn asked, studying his face. Really? I'm angry, Ray said honestly. But not the hot kind anymore. It's cold now. Clear. Does that make sense? Yeah. Carolyn's eyes were wet. Dad, I need to apologize for not believing you at first, for listening to Mom when she said you were confused. You didn't know. I should have. I'm your daughter, her voice cracked. When I was 17 and that boy cheated on me, you believed me immediately. You didn't question it, didn't tell me I was imagining things. And I couldn't do the same for you. Ray pulled her into a hug. She was 39 years old, a CPA who handled million-dollar accounts, but right now, she felt like she had at 7 when she'd scraped her knee and needed her dad to make it better. You're here now, he said. That's what matters. I'm not leaving until this is done. Whatever you need, however long it takes. They pulled apart. Carolyn wiped her eyes, back to business mode. So tomorrow night, she said. Who else is coming? Nora Pruitt from next door. She's got 3 months of surveillance. Carolyn's eyebrows rose. Surveillance? Long story. Good woman. Ray paused. And Pastor Bill, I think. You think? I need to ask him first. Ray found Pastor Bill at the church office, working on Wednesday's bulletin. The pastor looked up when Ray knocked, and something shifted in his expression. Guilt, maybe, or shame. Ray, come in. Ray sat in the chair across from Bill's desk. The office smelled like old books and the lemon cleaner the church ladies used. A cross hung on the wall behind Bill's head, wooden and plain. I need you to do something for me, Ray said, and it's going to be uncomfortable. Pastor Bill set down his pen. All right. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., I'm having a meeting at my house. Linda will be there. Carolyn, some others. I'm going to lay out some truths that need saying. Ray leaned forward. And I need you there as a witness. All right, I don't know if it's my place to get involved in. You're already involved, Bill. The whole church is involved. You've been involved since November. Pastor Bill's face went pale. How did you told me yourself. On the phone during the ice storm. Said Joanne Meeks saw Linda with a man. Said she wasn't the only one who'd mentioned things. Ray's voice stayed level. How many people in that congregation watched my wife parade around with another man and didn't say a word? To me? Pastor Bill stood, walked to the window. Outside, the church cemetery stretched toward the tree line. Headstones, marking 100 years of this community. 5, he said quietly. That I know of. Joanne saw them at the grocery store. Tom Mitchell saw them at that Italian restaurant across town. Sarah from the choir saw Linda's car at an apartment complex over by the river. He turned back to Ray. We failed you, I failed you. We told ourselves it wasn't our business, that we didn't want to get involved in marriage matters. But the truth is, we were cowards. Yeah, Ray said. You were. Pastor Bill flinched like he'd been slapped. But you can make it right, Ray continued. You can stand in my living room tomorrow night and tell the truth. You can witness what actually happened instead of what Linda says happened. She'll be furious. With me, with the church, I don't care about Linda's fury anymore, Bill. I care about the truth. I care about not letting her gaslight her way out of fraud and adultery, because everyone's too polite to say what they saw. Ray stood. So I'm asking you, as my pastor, as someone who's supposed to care about his flock, will you stand with me tomorrow? Pastor Bill looked at the cross on his wall, then at Ray. Oh, yes, he said. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. Good. Ray headed for the door, stopped. And Bill, bring Joanne if she's willing. Anyone else who saw something. I want every witness in that room. Ray's phone rang at 6 p.m. Eddie Krantz. Heard you might need some support tomorrow night, Eddie said without preamble. Pastor Bill called me, said you were calling the meeting. News travels fast. Small church, small town. Eddie paused. I saw them too, Ray. Linda and that man, last month at the Ace Hardware over in Riverside. She was helping him pick out paint colors. Ray closed his eyes. How many people had watched this happen? I'm sorry I didn't tell you, Eddie continued. I told myself maybe it was innocent, maybe he was a cousin or something, but I knew. Deep down I knew. Eddie, let me come tomorrow. Let me stand there and tell what I saw. I owe you that much. Ray's throat tightened. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. By 9 p.m. Monday night, Ray's dining room table looked like a war room. Carolyn's financial documents spread across one end, Nora's surveillance notebook and photographs in the middle, Ray's own notes, 3 months of wine receipts and odometer readings and text messages on the right. 3 different angles on the same betrayal. 3 witnesses to the same truth. Carolyn made coffee. Nora sat quiet, studying the evidence like she was back at her bank teller window, verifying accounts. Ray stood at the window, watching his own house from the outside, maybe seeing what Nora had seen all those months. You ready for this? Carolyn asked. Ray thought about Linda's voice through the bedroom wall. The old fool thinks I still love him. Yeah, he said. I'm ready. His phone buzzed. Text from Linda. What's this meeting really about, Ray? He typed back. Truth, 7 p.m. Be there. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, fine. Ray set his phone down. Looked at his daughter, his neighbor, the evidence that proved he wasn't crazy. She still thinks she can control it, he said. Still thinks she can walk into that room and perform her way out. Can she? Nora asked. Ray thought about Pastor Bill's confession, about Eddie calling to apologize, about Joanne Meeks who'd seen them shopping for wine, about 5 church members who'd witnessed betrayal and stayed silent until now. Not this time, Ray said. This time, the truth has witnesses. Carolyn raised her coffee mug. To witnesses. Nora lifted hers. To truth. Ray joined them. To dignity. They drank, 3 people in a dining room surrounded by evidence, preparing for a war that would be fought with documents and testimonies and the simple, devastating power of reality spoken out loud. Outside, March wind rattled the windows, spring pushing through winter's last resistance. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Ray would open his door and let the truth walk in. And this time, Linda wouldn't be able to close it. Tuesday, March 12th, 6:30 p.m. Ray's living room had never felt like this, like a courtroom waiting for the accused. Nora sat in the armchair by the window, her notebook and photographs in a neat stack on her lap. Pastor Bill stood near the fireplace, Bible in hand like armor. Eddie had positioned himself by the doorway, arms crossed. Joanne Meeks from the quilting circle perched on the sofa's edge, nervous but determined. Carolyn moved between them all, organizing documents on the coffee table with the precision of someone who'd presented to hostile boardrooms. Financial statements, forged signatures, Marcus Waverly's credit report showing $87,000 in debt. Ray stood in the center of it, his living room transformed into something else. The house he'd built with his own hands, now a witness stand. She's here, Eddie said, looking out the front window. Ray's heart kicked once, hard, then settled into something steady, cold clarity. Linda's car pulled into the driveway. She sat there for a moment. Ray could see her silhouette through the windshield, phone to her ear. Then she got out, walked toward the house, with her shoulders back and her face set. She opened the door without knocking, stopped dead when she saw the room full of people. "What the hell is this?" Linda's voice came sharp, defensive. "Family meeting," Ray said quietly. "Like I told you, come in and sit down." Linda's eyes swept the room, landed on Nora, on Pastor Bill, on Joanne. "You brought church people? Ray, what are you—" "Sit down, Linda." Something in his voice made her pause. Ray had never used that tone with her before. 43 years of accommodation, and she'd never heard him sound like granite. She sat on the sofa, as far from Joanne as possible. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is insane." "These are our private." "December 18th, Ray interrupted. "I came home and found 2 crystal wine glasses in the sink. You told me you ate alone. You told me Carol had stopped by the day before." He pulled out his notebook. "Carol lives in Atlanta. She hasn't visited since last Thanksgiving." Linda's face flushed. "I don't have to sit here and be interrogated. You lied to me. And when I asked about it, you made me feel crazy for asking. You told me I should see Doc Henderson. That I was imagining things." "Ray, I'm not finished." Ray's voice stayed level. He looked at Nora. "Would you share what you documented?" Nora opened her notebook. "I see Ray's driveway from my bedroom window. Starting November 19th, a silver Lexus began appearing at your house every Tuesday and Thursday, always between 2:10 and 2:20 p.m., always leaving between 4:45 and 5 p.m., always when Ray's truck wasn't in the driveway." She pulled out a photograph. "The vehicle belongs to Marcus Waverly, age 52. I have 3 months of dated entries and photographs." Linda stared at this photo like it was a snake. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been witnessing," Nora said calmly. Pastor Bill cleared his throat. "Linda, 5 members of our congregation have seen you with a man who isn't Ray. Joanne saw you at the grocery store. Tom Mitchell saw you at Salvatore's restaurant. Sarah saw your car at the Riverside Apartments." "We stayed silent," Joanne added, voice shaking. "We thought it wasn't our business. But we saw you, Linda. All of us saw you." Linda's hands gripped the sofa cushion. "This is a witch hunt. You're all ganging up on me because of this." Carolyn stood, held up the refinance application. "This is a home equity loan for $150,000. The signature says Ray Tillman, but it's not Dad's signature. It's forged." She laid out the forensic analysis. "The pressure points are wrong. The letter formation's off. Someone faked Dad's signature on a loan application to steal his house." That's ridiculous," Linda said, but her voice had gone thin. "Ray signed that. He's just forgotten." "I didn't sign anything," Ray's voice cut through. "And the financial consultant listed on that application? Marcus Waverly? The same man whose car has been in my driveway 3 times a week for 4 months." Carolyn continued. "Marcus Waverly owes $87,000, child support arrears, maxed credit cards. He's desperate, Linda. And somehow your house, the house Dad built, the house his father died in, was going to solve his money problems." The closing's this Saturday," Ray said. March 15th. That's what the text meant, wasn't it? "Need 3 more weeks, 3 weeks from Valentine's Day. 3 more weeks of pretending to love me, so you could steal my home and run off with a bankrupt insurance salesman." Linda stood. "I don't have to listen to this. You're all crazy." The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Eddie opened the door. Marcus Waverly stood there in an expensive coat, cologne filling the doorway with that same sharp scent from the wine glasses 4 months ago. He looked confident, ready to rescue Linda from whatever ambush she'd texted him about. Then he saw the room full of people, saw the documents spread on the coffee table, saw his own face in Nora's photographs. The confidence drained out of him like water. "Linda?" Marcus's voice cracked. "What's going on?" "Come in, Marcus," Ray said. "You're exactly who we're discussing." Marcus stepped inside like a man walking to his execution. His eyes darted between Linda and the evidence on the table. Carolyn stood. "Marcus Waverly, that's you, right?" He nodded, mute. "You owe $87,000. You're 3 months behind on child support, your car's being repossessed, and you somehow thought you could commit bank fraud to get out of it." That's not... Marcus looked at Linda desperately. Tell them this wasn't my idea." Linda's face had gone white. "The refinance was her idea," Marcus blurted suddenly, panic overtaking sense. "She came to me. She said Ray would never notice, that he was too confused to..." "Shut up," Linda hissed. "No." Marcus's voice rose. "I'm not taking the fall for this alone. You seduced me. You said your husband was a senile old man with a house worth $300,000. You said we could take the equity and... You pathetic coward." Linda turned on him with such viciousness that Joanne actually flinched. "You came to me, remember? You cold-called about life insurance and saw an opportunity. Because you told me to. You said..." "I said I needed bank connections for the refinance. I never said I loved you, you fool. Did you really think we'd run off together? You, a bankrupt loser who can't even pay child support?" Marcus looked like she'd punched him. "You said after the closing, we could... After the closing, I'd have been gone with the money, alone. God, you're as stupid as Ray." The room went silent. Linda realized what she'd said, looked around at all the faces staring at her. "I didn't mean..." "Yes, you did." Ray's voice was quiet, steady. "You meant exactly that. I heard you say it, Linda, Saturday night during the ice storm. You were on the phone with Marcus. You called me an old fool. Said I couldn't find my ass with both hands in a map. Said nobody takes confused old men seriously." Linda's mouth opened, closed. "But that wasn't new, was it?" Ray continued. "That contempt. That wasn't something the affair caused. That's what you've always thought. Maybe for years. Maybe for decades. Ray, how long?" His voice cracked slightly. "How long have you actually hated me, Linda?" Something broke in Linda's face. Some performance she'd been holding for 43 years. Her eyes went hard and cold and honest for maybe the first time since December. 30 years, she said. "I stopped loving you 30 years ago. Maybe longer. You wanted this life? This pathetic small-town existence, fixing circuit breakers and volunteering at church? This was your dream, Ray, not mine. I was 21 years old. I didn't know I was marrying myself into a prison." The words fell like stones in still water. "I needed to get out," Linda continued, voice rising. "So yes, I found Marcus. And yes, we planned the refinance. And you know what? You never would have noticed. Because you're exactly what I told him. A trusting old fool who can't see what's right in front of his face." Ray stood there absorbing it. Pastor Bill's hand had gone to his mouth. Nora's eyes were wet. Carolyn looked like she might be sick. 43 years, Ray said quietly. 43 years, I kept every promise I made to you, built you this house, provided, stayed faithful, and you're telling me it was all a prison?" "Yes." Linda grabbed her purse. "And I'm done. You want a divorce, Ray? You got one. But you're not getting me charged with fraud. Marcus can take that fall. He forged your signature, not me." "That's a lie." Marcus lunged toward her. Eddie caught him, held him back. "Prove it," Linda sneered at Marcus. "It's your name on the application, your golf buddy, processing the loan, your signature on the consultant forms. I'm just the confused wife who didn't know what her husband was signing." She looked at Ray one last time. 43 years reduced to this. Standing in their living room, surrounded by witnesses to her contempt, and choosing cruelty over any shred of dignity. "The old fool thinks I still love him," she said, echoing her own words from the ice storm. "But I never did, Ray. Not really. You were just... convenient." She walked out. The door slammed behind her. In the silence, they could hear her car start, drive away. Ray stood in the center of his living room, hands steady at his sides, and felt the 43-year performance finally end. Marcus collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. "I'll cooperate," he said dully. "Whatever you need. Bank records, testimony, everything. Just don't let her pin this all on me." Ray looked at this man, this desperate, foolish man who'd thought he could steal another man's life and call it love. "Get out of my house," Ray said quietly. Marcus fled. After he left, no one spoke for a long moment. Pastor Bill's face was ashen. Joanne was crying quietly. Nora sat with her notebook closed, looking older than her 72 years. Carolyn walked to Ray, wrapped her arms around him. Dad, she whispered. Dad, I'm so sorry. Ray held his daughter and stared at the empty doorway where his wife had disappeared and felt something he hadn't expected. Relief. The truth was out, the performance was over, and Ray Tillman, the old fool who couldn't find his ass with both hands, had reclaimed the only thing that mattered, reality. The divorce papers arrived 1 week later. Linda had filed from her sister's place in Tennessee, didn't contest anything, just wanted it done fast and quiet. Ray signed them in Carolyn's presence, his daughter acting as witness to the end of 43 years. You okay, Dad? Ray set down the pen, looked around the living room where he'd confronted Linda with the truth, where she'd finally shown him who she really was. Yeah, he said, and meant it. I'm okay. The refinance never closed. The bank launched a fraud investigation after Carolyn presented her forensic evidence. Marcus Waverly cooperated fully, handed over emails, text messages, recordings of phone calls with Linda, threw her under the bus so fast there were skid marks. Linda avoided criminal charges by abandoning the scheme entirely, claiming she'd been manipulated by Marcus, that she'd had no idea what she was signing. The bank didn't buy it, but prosecution would have been messy. They settled for blocking the loan and flagging both Linda and Marcus in their system. Ray didn't press charges. He just wanted it over. You sure? Carolyn asked. She tried to steal your house, Dad. I know, but I don't want her in prison. I want her gone. Ray looked at the house he'd built. Every wire, every outlet, every board he knew by heart. And I want to sell this place. Can't live here anymore. Carolyn understood. How could he walk through rooms where Linda had performed love for decades while harboring contempt? How could he sleep in a house that had been targeted for theft? Where will you go? Eddie's got an apartment above his hardware store. Small, but it's clean. Got a good window. Ray smiled slightly. And I can walk to the Morning Mug for coffee. Won't even need to drive. By mid-April, Ray had moved. He donated most of the furniture. Didn't want it. Didn't need it. Kept his father's toolbox, the wedding gift that had outlasted the wedding. Kept his workshop tools and electrical supplies. Kept one photo of his parents taken in that house back in 1907. Left everything else behind. 43 years of accumulated life reduced to what fit in his truck bed. The apartment was small. One bedroom, a kitchen that barely fit 2 people, a living room with a window that overlooked Main Street. He could see the church steeple from his breakfast table. Could hear the hardware store opening below him at 7 a.m. It was smaller than what he'd had. Simpler. It was real. Sunday morning, 3 weeks after the move, Ray attended service at First Baptist. The congregation treated him with careful kindness, people shaking his hand too long, hugging him with pity faces, telling him they were praying for him. Pastor Bill's sermon was about bearing witness, about speaking truth even when it's uncomfortable. He never mentioned Ray by name, but everyone knew. After service, Ray stood in the spring sun watching families gather on the church lawn, kids running, parents chasing them, the smell of fresh-cut grass and possibility. Joanne Meeks approached him. Ray, I want to apologize again for not telling you sooner. And you told me when it mattered, Ray said. That's what counts. We're grateful you're still coming to church. Some men would have left after everything. Ray looked at the white steeple against blue sky. This is my church too. Linda doesn't get to take that from me. Joanne squeezed his hand and walked away. Ray pulled out his phone. Carolyn had texted that morning, thinking about you. Love you, Dad. He typed back, love you too. Come visit next weekend? Her response came immediately. Already booked my flight. See you Friday. Ray smiled. They talk twice a week now. Real conversations, not obligatory check-ins. His daughter back in his life. Their relationship rebuilt through shared truth-telling. Eddie appeared at his elbow. Coffee at the Mug tomorrow? Wednesday morning usual? Nora coming? Always does. At Wednesday morning coffee. A routine that had emerged naturally over the past month. Ray, Eddie, Nora, talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. No agenda, no performance, just 3 people who'd chosen to be in each other's lives. I'll be there, Ray said. That afternoon, he got a call from the church building committee. They needed the fellowship hall rewired. Old electrical couldn't handle the new sound system. Would Ray be willing to take the job? Yes, he said. Absolutely. That evening in his small apartment, Ray stood at the window watching spring settle over the town. Dogwoods, blooming pink and white, kids riding bikes, the world turning green again after a long winter. His phone rang. Unknown number. Ray almost didn't answer. Mr. Tillman, this is Patricia Chin. My father owns the restaurant on 3rd Street. I heard you're doing electrical work again. Our kitchen circuits keep tripping. Could you take a look? Sure. When works for you? Tomorrow afternoon. Ray pulled out the small calendar he kept by the phone, started filling in jobs, his handwriting steady and sure. The life he was building now was smaller than 43 years of marriage. But it was constructed on truth instead of performance, on chosen family instead of legal obligation, on dignity earned rather than dignity assumed. Ray Tillman stood in his apartment above the hardware store as spring light filled the room and realized something simple and profound. He was going to be okay. Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. Morning mug diner, 3 people in a corner booth. Ray wrapped his scarred hands around a chipped coffee mug, the kind that had been through 10,000 dishwasher cycles and refused to break. Steam rose between his fingers, carrying the bitter good smell of coffee made strong enough to stand a spoon in. Nora was telling Eddie about the county fair planning meeting, something about the Quilting Circle's booth location being changed again. And wasn't that just typical of how these things went? Eddie laughed, said he'd donate some hardware for the kids' craft station, like he did every year. Nobody mentioned Linda. Nobody mentioned Marcus or the fraud or the meeting that had ended a marriage. That chapter was closed, not forbidden, just unnecessary. The way you didn't keep talking about winters that had already passed. Ray, you going to the fair? Nora asked. Might. Carolyn's visiting that weekend. Might take her, show her how small-town folks do things. He sipped his coffee. She's been asking about moving back closer. Says Atlanta's wearing her down. That'd be good, Eddie said. Having family nearby. Family. Ray turned the word over in his mind. Carolyn, yes. But also Nora with her Wednesday coffee loyalty. Eddie with his hardware store wisdom. Pastor Bill checking in. The church hiring him to rewire their fellowship hall. People who'd chosen to stand with him when standing was hard. Some men spent 43 years building marriages that turned out to be stage sets. Beautiful from the front, empty behind the curtain. Ray had done that. Poured his life into something that looked like love. But was really just one person performing and another person being performed for. Now he was building something different. Smaller maybe, but true. Through the diner window, a robin sang from the Bradford pear tree, its spring song cutting through the morning noise of Main Street waking up. Ray watched the bird, silhouetted against blue sky, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness exactly. Happiness felt too big, too soon. But peace, yes. The kind that came from knowing the worst had happened, and you'd survived it. The kind that made space for something better to grow. What are you smiling about? Eddie asked. Ray hadn't realized he was. Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Nora reached across the table, patted his hand, her arthritic fingers gentle against his calloused ones. You're doing good, Ray. You know that? He did. For the first time in months, he actually did. His phone buzzed. Text from Carolyn. Can't wait for this weekend. Thinking about that job opening at the accounting firm in town. Want your opinion. Ray typed back. Always got time for you, honey. The coffee was hot in his hands. The morning sun came through the window, warming his face the way spring sun did, when you'd lived through enough winters to appreciate it. Eddie was laughing at something Nora said. The diner smelled like bacon and possibility. Ray thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, standing in his kitchen, hands shaking over wine glasses, doubting his own reality. That man felt like a stranger now, someone who'd been asleep and didn't know it. I spent 43 years building a marriage that turned out to be a stage set, Ray thought. Now I'm building something smaller, but it's real, and that makes all the difference. He lifted his coffee mug, hands steady now, no tremor, no shake, and drank. Spring always comes, Ray had learned. Sometimes you just have to live through winter to know what warmth really means. Outside, the robin sang on.